Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's script? Like you're playing a role, calm, agreeable, always smiling, but deep down, you're screaming to be heard? Picture this. You're at a family barbecue, the kind with loud laughter and paper plates piling up. You're helping in the kitchen, nodding along to your mom's story when she says, "You're always so good, never causing trouble." Everyone smiles, but inside you freeze. That praise, it feels like a weight. You want to say, "I'm more than good," but the words don't come. Instead, you smile, pass the potato salad, and let the moment slip away. Sound familiar? If it does, this is for you. Let's dive into the quiet cost of being the easy daughter and why it's time to rewrite the story. There's a kind of daughter who doesn't make noise, not because she's empty, but because she learned early that silence keeps things smooth. Maybe you were her, or maybe you know her. She's the one who senses the mood in the room like a human thermostat, always adjusting herself to keep the peace. At Thanksgiving, she's in the background, clearing plates before anyone asks. At school, she's the straight A student who never talks back. In family photos, her smile is perfect, on cue. But behind closed doors, when something hurts, like a friend's betrayal or a teacher's unfair grade, she stays quiet. Not because she doesn't feel it, but because she's learned that speaking up might tip the balance. Ever wonder what that silence is really hiding? It starts small, doesn't it? Think back to when you were a kid, maybe 7 or 8, bursting with energy, telling a story at the dinner table. You're loud, excited, words tumbling out, but then your dad says, "Lower your voice, don't be so dramatic." It's not harsh, just a nudge, but you feel it. A little sting, a subtle cue. Or maybe you're 10, upset because your brother got the bigger slice of cake, and you try to say so, but your mom cuts in. "Don't be so sensitive, it's not a big deal." These moments aren't cruel, they're corrections. Tiny adjustments that seem harmless. But they stack up, don't they? They teach you that your big feelings, your loud voice, your raw truth, they're too much. So you dial it back, just a little, to keep the smiles coming. When did you first notice that being good meant being less? Here's the thing, you weren't born quiet. You were born alive, messy, full of wants and wonder. But the world around you, family, school, even TV shows, handed you a script. Be nice, be easy, don't disrupt. And you learned fast because kids are smart. They don't need punishment to adapt. They just need to see what gets rewarded. When you stayed calm, you got hugs. When you let things slide, the tension faded. When you made yourself smaller, the room felt lighter. So you kept going, shrinking just enough to feel safe, to avoid the wrong kind of attention. But what does it mean to be easy to raise? And more importantly, who benefits when you disappear a little more each time? Let's paint a picture. You're 13, at a sleepover with friends, giggling over snacks and a cheesy movie. One of the girls says something mean, maybe about your new haircut, and it stings. You want to snap back to say, "That's not cool," but you catch the vibe. Everyone's laughing, the mood's light, and if you speak up, you'll be the buzzkill. So you laugh too, even though your chest tightens. Later, in the bathroom, you stare at the mirror, wondering why you didn't say anything. That moment, it's not just a sleepover, it's a lesson. You learn that keeping the peace means swallowing your hurt, that being liked means being quiet. Ever had a moment like that where you chose the group over your truth? Fast forward to now. You're an adult, maybe at a work happy hour surrounded by coworkers. Someone makes a joke about your role. Something subtle but sharp, like, "Oh, you're the office mom, always cleaning up." The table laughs, but you feel it, that familiar sting. You could call it out, say, "I'm more than that." But the old script kicks in. Don't make it awkward. Don't seem too sensitive. So you smile, sip your drink, let it slide. But later, alone in your car, you feel it. A heaviness, a quiet ache. You're not mad at them, you're mad at yourself. Why do we keep doing this? Why do we trade our voice for approval, even when it hurts? Psychologist Donald Winnicott called this the false self. a version of you that grows like a protective shell when your real self feels too risky to show. It's not a lie, it's a compromise. You build it to keep connection because as a kid, connection was everything. Dr. Gabor Mate talks about this too, saying there's a fracture between authenticity and attachment. When being yourself threatens belonging, like when your anger makes your mom frown or your sadness makes your dad look away, you choose belonging every time. You don't even think about it, your body does it for you. Your throat tightens before you speak. Your eyes scan faces mid-sentence, checking for signs of rejection. Ever catch yourself doing that? Watching for cues before you let yourself feel? Here's where it gets deep. That adaptation, it's not just in your head, it lives in your body, in your nervous system. Neuroscience shows that when emotions aren't expressed, they don't disappear, they settle. They become tension in your shoulders, a knot in your stomach, a racing mind that won't shut off. You might not cry or yell, but your body keeps the score. Ever notice how you're always tired even when you haven't done much? Or how you can't relax, even on a quiet Sunday? That's not laziness, that's your system running on high alert, always scanning, always adjusting, always making sure you're safe. Safe from what? From the rejection you learned to fear before you could even name it. Let's talk about the mask you wear. It's not something you put on, it's something you've become. You're the one who laughs at the right moment, even if the joke's not funny. You apologize for interrupting, even when you didn't. You offer to help, not because you want to, but because your presence always has to prove its worth. People call you mature, emotionally intelligent, easy to talk to. But what they really mean is you never ask for too much. You never make things messy. You've mastered translating your feelings into something digestible, something that doesn't disturb the room. But what happens to the parts of you that don't fit that script? Where do they go when you're always playing the good girl? Here's a story. My cousin Emma was the perfect daughter growing up. Straight A's, never argued, always helped with chores. At family gatherings, she'd sit quietly, smiling while the adults praised her. She's so mature for her age. But I remember one Christmas when she was 16. We were in the backyard, away from the chaos, string lights twinkling above us, the air sharp with winter chill. She told me something I'll never forget. She said, "I feel like I'm disappearing and nobody notices." She wasn't sad or angry, she was hollow. That year she'd stopped writing poetry, something she loved, because her parents said it was too emotional. She'd stopped arguing with her brother even when he was wrong because it made her mom anxious. Emma didn't break down, she faded. Ever feel like that, like you're losing pieces of yourself to keep everyone else comfortable? Let's go deeper. Imagine you're at a high school dance, the gym decked out with streamers, music thumping. You're laughing with friends, but then you overhear a comment. Someone says you're too nice, like it's a flaw. It cuts, but you don't show it. You keep dancing, keep smiling, because that's what you do. But later in the bathroom, splashing cold water on your face, you wonder, what's wrong with being nice? The answer hits you, not the niceness, but the way it's become your shield. You're not nice because you want to be. You're nice because it's safe. When did you start hiding behind that smile? When did nice become your only way to be seen? Now picture a quieter moment, one you might not think twice about. You're at a friend's wedding, the reception in full swing, fairy lights twinkling, champagne flowing. You're at a table with people you've known forever and someone asks about your life, your job, your dreams. You start to answer, but you feel it. That instinct to downplay, to soften, to make your story small. Oh, it's nothing big, you say, even though you've been working hard, chasing goals that light you up. Why do you do that? Because deep down, you've learned that shining too bright makes others uneasy, that taking up space might make the table shift uncomfortably. So you shrink again and the conversation moves on. But as you watch the dance floor, a pang hits you. What would it feel like to be unapologetically you, to share your full story without fear? Have you ever dimmed your light to keep the room comfortable? That fading, it's not loud. It's not a dramatic collapse you can point to and say, that's when it happened. It's a slow unraveling, a quiet erosion. You don't notice it at first because on the surface, everything's fine. You're functioning, showing up to work, laughing with friends, posting cute pics on Instagram. But inside, you're floating slightly outside yourself. You replay conversations wondering if you said too much or too little. You can't sleep, not because you're stressed, but because your mind won't stop scanning for the next thing that might go wrong. You're tired, but it's not the kind of tired a nap can fix. It's deeper, like you're running out of you. Ever feel that exhaustion? The kind that comes from being on all the time? Let's get real about the cost. When you spend years adjusting to everyone else, you start to lose your own outline. What do you like, really? What makes you angry? What do you need? These should be simple questions, but they're not anymore. They come with static, with doubt, because you've spent so long filtering yourself that even your own wants feel like guesswork. You're fluent in being adaptable, in reading the room, and keeping things smooth. But fluency isn't authenticity. You can connect with anyone, but who connects with you? When was the last time you felt truly seen? Not for being easy, but for being you? Here's where it hits hardest. Relationships. You're the friend who listens but doesn't share. The partner who supports but doesn't need. The coworker who says yes even when you're drowning. You've become so good at avoiding friction that your presence feels like absence. People love you, but they don't know you. Not really. Because you never arrive without translation. You don't show up with your mess, your edges, your realness, and that creates a loneliness that's hard to name. You're surrounded by people, but you're still aching, because being easy to love isn't the same as being known. Ever feel that ache, like you're right there but still invisible? Let's take a moment to breathe. Close your eyes just for a second and think, when did you last feel truly free to be you? Not the polished version, not the good daughter, but the you that laughs too loud, cries without shame, wants without apology. Maybe it was a rare moment, singing in the car with the windows down, or dancing in your kitchen alone, feeling every beat without a care. What did that feel like? Now ask yourself, why don't you let that version of you out more often? What's holding her back? That's the question we're unraveling. The weight of a script you didn't write, but one you've been living for too long. Let's imagine something different. Picture that barbecue again, or that sleepover, or that moment at work where you stayed quiet. This time, you don't. You speak, not to fight, but to be real. You say, that hurt me, or I'm not okay with that, or I need more. What happens? Maybe they listen, maybe they don't. But you feel it, a spark, a shift, a piece of yourself coming back. You're not just reacting to the room anymore, you're claiming your space in it. Doesn't that feel worth it? What would you say if you could go back to one of those moments and speak your truth? Here's the truth. You weren't born to be a reflection. You were born to be a voice, loud, messy, real. But the world taught you to shrink, to soften, to smile through the hurt. And you did because you wanted to be loved, to belong. But belonging shouldn't cost you yourself. Being good shouldn't mean disappearing. So what if you stopped performing? What if you let yourself feel, speak, exist without apology? Jung would say that's where your power lives. Not in being easy, but in being whole. Not in being quiet, but in being true. Let's try something. Think of one moment you stayed silent when you wanted to speak. Maybe it was last week, maybe a decade ago. What would you say now if you could go back, not to hurt anyone, but to honor yourself? Say it out loud, write it down, share it in the comments. Your story might be the mirror someone else needs to see themselves. And if this resonated, if it made you feel seen, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with someone who gets it, subscribe for more, because you're not just easy to love, you're worth knowing. Let's start showing up as we are.